This week, it was a tale of two cities for the Clarets, as a trip to the capital ended up in a 4-0 defeat, before a visit to the Foxes saw a much improved performance. This is the No Nay Never podcast.
Anyway, should we crack on then?
Yeah, go on then, Tom.
I don't want to spend much time talking about the Tottenham game. I don't know about you.
No, it was
Fair to say it was shocking.
It was shocking, yeah. I thought you was going to say another word beginning with SH then, but yeah, it was absolutely, it was awful. It was just funny because my mate triple captained Harry Kane in the fantasy team, and he was like, "Oh, Kane's gonna, score a few here today." And I was like, yeah, we might not win, but we won't get battered. I was, because we've been, even though we've not been, normally fluent, we've been pretty solid of late, and then that first half an hour the first all game really, and the first half was just absolutely awful, and the first goal we conceded, I just looked, I just looked over to my dad and just went, like, what's happened? It was just straight, it was so easy, wasn't it?
It's not often you see us trying playing offside. Yeah. I don't know, how often do you see us playing offside trap like that, everyone trying to step up? It just doesn't happen. So either he's told them to do that, in which case it was a bad shot, they should have worked on it, or they just took it upon themselves to do it. I couldn't.
Yeah, it was strange, and normally
and then, like
one thing we pride ourselves on. Sorry, say that again, Tom.
No, I was just going to say that set the tone, didn't it, for the afternoon, conceding that early. But yeah,
no, he just said, like you were saying about the offside trap. What seemed odd was me and Lowton seemed to step up, and Tarkin Taylor dropped deep and played him onside, so we wasn't in sync at all. And as you were saying, that's really like us. One thing I felt is that we defended higher than we normally do. We seem to be, a few yards further up the pitch, and that first goal just epitomised it. It was kind of just a regulation ball in behind the tapping. You 1-0 down, and I think sometimes with our record, especially against the big clubs, going 1-0 down early on, the game was dead already, wasn't it?
I think that was one of the problems. Like you say, we're playing a bit higher. We've got nothing to hang on to. We're 2 minutes in and it's already gone. So we've got to push up a bit if we want to try and get one in the first half, and then you get the gaps. The other thing for me was as well, I seen Lowton getting criticised for the second. That ball from Bale, and I mean, by the way, you can win your way you want. That ball is absolutely world class. You've got space in behind fair enough, but to pick out a 90-yard pass right onto the England captain's toe, I mean, sometimes you just got to hold your hands up. But yeah, I've seen Lowton getting criticised for that. The problem that we've got down that side, I think, at the minute, with Goodmunson and Brady injured, is Brownhill can't cross the ball. So if you want anything coming down that right hand side, Lowton's got a bomb on, and he's been playing like that the last few weeks. But if he's going to bomb on and he needs someone on that right hand side to put a ball in, and you've got to put him 20 yards further up the pitch, then you're going to get caught out like that. If you've got to leave that space there, it's just an inevitability. And good teams or good players, I agree with you. We were talking earlier. I don't think Tottenham are any great shakes this season, but they've got players like, if you've got a front three of Son, Kane and Bale, and you give them space and time, they're all going to hear you. It doesn't matter what happens, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, I can't, as you said there, Tom, I don't think you can blame Lowton at all. At the end of the day, probably our main threat is getting the ball wide and getting crosses into the box, and that's what Lowton tried to do. And like you said, it was a magnificent ball from Bale. A little bit of luck maybe in the finish, took that deflection to go past Pope. But that's that difficult one, isn't it? Where, it's that gamble. Dyche obviously loves playing 4-4-2, and I think overall we are the most successful playing 4-4-2. But I think if you're asking the fullbacks to go up, but you're not playing that extra man in midfield who can cover for the fullback if they then go up, I think it just exposes the back four a little bit and just leaves that, so much space. And as you were saying, Tottenham maybe structurally aren't a great side this season, but when you've still got world-class players like that who can hurt you, they can just change the game, at any second. And like you said, I thought actually, 1-0 down, we got back into the game. We was playing some nice football. Jay had that chance where he maybe took an extra touch, and I think it went out for a corner. And like I was saying, we was probably defending too high because we conceded early. You're trying to get back into the game, and that's where you leave extra gaps. Counter that to when we played Liverpool and we won 1-0. When because it was 0-0 for so long, we was hanging on for something, so everybody was kind of defending in our own half. And in the end, obviously, we managed to get one. And I think just that sloppy first goal where we didn't know whether we was playing offside or onside, we wasn't in a line. It just killed us. I think Dyche alluded to it in his interview. Just killed our absolute game plan. Where when you go away to these big clubs, you want to try and keep it tight early on, and then go into the game as it goes on.
Yeah, it set the tone, didn't it? That was the thing. And then, like you say, you're caught between trying to chase the game, probably thinking as well. Excuse me, half thinking Tottenham are beatable this season, or at the very least, you can go and get points off them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Maybe if that's, say, I don't know, Man City, Chelsea. Man City's not a good example, but Liverpool, Chelsea, something like that. You go 1-0 down early, you're probably thinking more, let's just dig in for 20 minutes, and just keep it at 1-0 and try and come back in later. But maybe the thinking was Tottenham this season, they're a bit more easy to get at. But obviously didn't pay off, and that second half, it was like watching like a bloody training game, wasn't it? It was
it's kind of.
it was bad.
I've got something inside. I've got something inside me. It's the same when I go to the game live. I can't, even though the game's dead and it's 4-0, I can't turn it off. I don't know if you're the same. I feel like obliged to watch it. It's kind of like that strange kind of self torture that you put yourself through. That it's kind of a bit of it's easy to support them when they're playing well and winning. So every now and again, you just got to sit through one and suffer through it. Like you said, that I was just thankful that the score did stay at 4. Because at one point I was thinking, this could get to 6 or 7 here, and it could get really, really embarrassing, and that can obviously a negative knock on effect to the games coming up. But yeah, it's just kind of like painful to watch. To be honest, Tom, you're talking about the goals. I can't even remember the third and fourth goal. I think with the game happening last night, and I've literally just come off watching Fulham, I think I've just blanked it from my memory. Who scored I think Mora scored one. Don't know who scored the fourth. Did Bale get another? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was that ball across the pitch, and he's about 30 yards to the side of Taylor, and just puts it in there. It was a good finish, to be fair, just bent it the far corner. But
Yeah.
the less you remember them, the better. To be fair, that's probably the best way to be.
Park it, move on.
Park it, move on. Yeah. Now I'm just going to say Richardson coming on at the end. Like, I don't know about you, every time I hear his name, I hear that he's meant to be really good. He's really highly rated. So it's nice to see him get a couple of minutes, and he put himself about a bit, won a couple of corners. Good for him to get some minutes as well. Hopefully we'll see a bit more of him. I don't know what you think about Mumbongo. Like, he looks lively when he comes on, but I've not seen him do an awful lot. So it's nice to think that you've got another option there to play centre forward.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Mumbongo then, because I was going to do a bit of the comparison of the two. Obviously, like you were saying, Tom, Richardson's the name that you've heard popping up over the last couple of years, scoring goals. I think he's been involved in England youth teams as well. So obviously he's got talent. And when he come on, my initial thought was, bloody hell, doesn't this lad look young? He was scrawny as anything, weren't he? But then, like you said, he come on, ran the channels a couple of times. And I think sometimes when you see a player come on, you think that, they've got something about them. The way he just moved the ball, he manipulated it. Again, it's very, very early days, and I don't want to get carried on. But you do think there's something there. I think it was similar. I think my memory's right. I think McNeil come on quite late on last game of the season to Bournemouth. The season we come 7th, and he only come on for 10 minutes. But you thought, you know what, this lad's got something, and Richardson's cameo reminded me of that. When compared to when I've seen other players come on, I thought, you know what, they look a little bit out of depth. And going back to Mumbongo, he come on and made a difference against MK Dons. Obviously, League One standard. And every time I've seen him come on in the Premier League, he looks way out of his depth, in my opinion. He's obviously got a bit of raw pace and power, but technically wise, he looks way off it. The ball's kind of like bobbling off him and stuff like that. And the thing is with Mumbongo, he's not like he's a spring chicken. I think he's 22. So you would actually expect more technically of somebody of his age. And I think it's been interesting. I think Richard Mumbongo's fit because he scored for the under-23s. So in the last couple of games, Dice seems to prefer has given Richardson an opportunity on the bench instead of Mumbongo. So yeah, it's good signs for the future. Again, I think with him, it may do him good to have a loan spell next season. But I definitely think there's something there, and fully agree, Tom. That was the only real positive to come out of that game for me.
Yeah, a bit of something to take away anyway. But thankfully, there's a few more positives to talk about. The other game last night, as we're recording,
Yeah,
it was one apiece with Leicester. To be honest, the point's a good point. If you look at where they are in the league and their away form, especially, I think they've only lost once away all season. But with the players they had missing, I think we all thought we had a chance before the game, and probably in the end should have won it. Probably the better team, I would have said.
yeah, it's kind of a fun. In the initial aftermath of the game, I was disappointed that we didn't get the win. I think that Tottenham game we wasn't even competitive, and the turnaround. Yes, Leicester had injuries, but they still had some very very good players on the pitch. Defensively, they looked all over the show, but Tillemans, Vardy, still got some quality players, and for probably till 70 minutes of the second half, we actually battered them. And I mean battered them. You look at the possession stats. I think we was like 65 to 35, and an old possession doesn't mean everything. But you look at the quality of chances we have, and even the goal really. It was you can pick holes in it, but it was a great finish, a great ball. And other than that Tillman shot at the end that hit the post, they didn't really create that many chances. So I was like you, Tom. I was disappointed in the initial aftermath, but then after reflecting on it, after the recent performances after the Tottenham loss, imagine if we played them with injuries and we got battered 3-0 again. So, yeah, I was really, really pleased with the performance, and it's just kind of frustrating that we don't write. And again, I know that's football and it's sport and the human beings, but when you see us play like that against a very good side, it's frustrating that we produce such dross against West Brom and Tottenham.
Yeah, West Brom especially, and then you think Brighton and Fulham as well. I mean, Brighton would play well, but you think Fulham or West Brom, if we'd have had that performance, we'd have had three big points. But we've always
Yeah,
been like that, and we've always been a streaky team. I think people forget sometimes, even like the year we come seventh. I think around Christmas, I think we went to daft like 7, 8, maybe it was even 10 games without a win, something ridiculous like
yeah,
that. And then we followed it up with 5 wins in a spin. So I think we are a team that, especially because we've got such a lack of strength in depth, a couple of injuries does really throw us out. Like we haven't got a player like Wood, for example. Like the difference Wood made last night when he came in, I thought bullying the centre halves. Like you say, they were. I mean, that's Soyuncu spent more time on the floor than in the air because Wood absolutely had the beating of him. He battered
yeah,
him. So and like you don't get that from Rodriguez. You're not going to get that from Vidra. So and that is a big part of how we play when we need to be a bit more direct. So and the wings is an obvious one as well. Like I say, the Tottenham game, I don't think Loughton's getting caught out like he was if you've got Goodmanson or Brady there in front of him. So I really think and it's true of a lot of teams in the league. Look at Palace without Zaha. I mean, if Man United didn't have Fernandes, they'd be about 15th, I think. So, so it is true of a lot of teams that if you take a couple of players out, they look a lot different. But yeah, that's part of the reason we're so streaky. I think is good form and absence of a couple of players does make a big difference. But it is what
yeah.
it is. There's a reason we're not a top 10 consistent team, and it is consistency really.
I think you made a few good points here, which I kind of dissect and pick out. First one was Wood. And as you know, Tom, I've been more critical of Wood than I think more of the No Nay Never panel this season. But yesterday, for me,
Yeah.
I know he didn't score, which was very unlucky not to. That was his best game of the season by a million miles, in my opinion. He bullied the centre halves. He looked more physical. One thing I've always said is that technically he can be awful and give really easy ball away. He was laying the ball off well. He was running the channels, and he was a genuine goal threat. And I think he linked up with Vidra. And I think it just shows that I think we've seen a little bit of a pattern this season when players have actually had an injury and come back into the team with a bit of a break. They've actually put in some really good performances. McNeil had that bit of a break, come back in the team, and he played really well. Same with Wood last night. I thought so. I thought his performance was a massive, massive boost. I thought Vidra was excellent. Obviously, that he seems a real confidence player, and that goal gave him a lot of confidence. I thought those two really run Leicester ragged last night. Going to the point you mentioned, Tom, about injuries, absolutely, it's massive. I think you look at every team this season has had injury problems. And the one team who's been consistently performing is Man City, and that's because of the squad they've got. Because like De Bruyne got injured, but then Gundogan stepped up. I think something that's been really crucial to me, and I think a lot of people have missed this off. We were playing some really good football. Goodmanson was playing at his best. Since he went off at Fulham, our performance levels have dropped, and it's not just because of him getting injured. It's disrupted the whole balance of the team. Brownell's a very good player, but he's just not a right winger. So as you were saying, missing him probably contributed to that second goal not going in. Against West Brom, we missed that creativity where the play was breaking down sometimes. But it was nice to see us getting back to it last night, putting in a much better performance. I just want to mention Jack Cork. People on Twitter still like criticise Cork, and I'm like, do you actually are you watching the same game that I'm watching? Like Court last night, I can't remember it. He gave the ball away once. He was a fantastic link between the defence and the attack. Spreads the play well. In my opinion, he's still our best centre mid. Um, I think Westwood is a combative player, works hard, but gives a lot of easy ball away. But so that's kind of like my point to summarise that. I know I'll go on it a little bit more, but I think Wood coming back was a massive help. Vidra played really well, but again, going back to other games and inconsistencies, injuries and balance of the team, really contribute to that.
Yeah, that's a good point about Cork. I think you noticed our midfield settled down a lot since he's been back fit. He's one of them players like if you don't, especially when you're not in the stadium. I think that does make a difference watching it on telly, but especially with the Sky. By the way, the Sky camera work last night. How many times was he showing a replay or a zoom in on Brendan Rodgers for half a minute when someone was attacking? Camera work was absolutely shocking. So no surprise you wouldn't have noticed the stuff that Jack Cork's doing off the ball.
My dad went mental at that.
Yeah, so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, my dad goes mental about that. He's like, "What are they doing?" It's like, yeah, they like showed an up close footage of, like you said, of Rodgers. It's like I don't give one. I just want to see what's going on in the game. And then next minute, Pope took a free kick, and their centre halves have got it. So you probably feel Pope smashed it way too long. But yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. He's not like he's even that good looking, is it? I mean, if it was Scott Parker or something, I could understand, but
no.
Yeah. But yeah, there's things like that. Watching it on telly, you don't see what Court brings to the team. But yeah, like you say, very sort of neat and tidy, knits it all together, puts himself about. I think Brownhill is still sort of. I think he's learning how to play in a two in our system, and he's a good player, technically a very good player. But he's like you said, the right wing's not his best position. But I think if it was me, I'd be sticking with Cork and Westwood for the rest of the season. What did you think to the Woods Vidra part? Has touched on it already. Like, would you stick with that for the next few games, or because I don't think Rodriguez, we mentioned it before, is whether he's tired or what, but he's not had a good season really, has he overall?
No, when you're going to J-Rod, I think post lockdown he was our best player. In that run into the season, and he had obviously scored early against Palace. I thought he had a good game there, and obviously did a great bit of skill for the Barnes equaliser at Fulham. And listen, I think we all love J-Rod, don't we? We've all, being a Burnley lad, we've all got a soft spot for him. If you would have known never panel team have done the fans memory. So I think you're going to be next on that, Tom. I think you're next on the list.
I haven't been invited yet. I must be way at the bottom.
All right. Yeah, he's just not been quite on it. And I thought Wood and Vidra were brilliant last night. It definitely does help if, obviously probably playing against the type of centre-halves Wood played against last night does enable him to win a lot more ball. And if we are winning the aerial battle, that's what our attacking play is built on. But Vidra is such an enigma, isn't he, of a player? Like last night and against Brighton second half, he was playing like he was 6'5", bullying centre halves, running in behind, great touches, and then he has other games where he looks weak as a mouse. I think Dice mentioned it in his interview. Sometimes with Vidra, he can give up a little, not give up and stop trying, but he just doesn't believe in himself enough. But I think when he's playing well, he's a fantastic player. I probably would have agreed with you though last night, Tom, and actually had Jay starting with Wood and bring Vidra off the bench. But I think with the way he played on last night, I think he's got to start this weekend. And I think the game plan that we had against Leicester, we can definitely mirror it against Arsenal. You know, there's a difference between a long, just a hoop, like a hopeful long ball into anywhere, and a long pass. Something I noticed we did more last night. Pope actually rolled the ball out to his centre half more, got it to the fullback, and we hit a ball into the channel to give something for Vidra and Wood to run onto, and then we can play off that rather than just a hopeful hope, just a hopeful long ball from Pope who's kicking, can be inaccurate to say at times. So yeah, 100%. I definitely start them two on Saturday. And I think with Vidra getting the goal and Wood coming in, playing so well, I think those two will be full of confidence. And I know Dyche said in his press conference today that he is going to make calls on Goodmanson and Brady. For me, Brady can stay in Dublin if he wants to. Even if he's fit, I'd still play Brownhill. I know he's your mate, Tom, but fingers crossed, even if Goodmanson comes off the bench against Arsenal, I just hope we've got that option.
Yeah, I do like Brady, but
no, I'm being harsh on Brady there, but bloody hell, he was bad,
yeah,
wasn't he? He was bad when he against
he's
Fulham.
been up for the last 5 or 6, to be fair to him. I think he could probably do with another 1 or 2 games just to ruminate on that. Thanks for mentioning that I said we should start Rodriguez and Wood, by the way, to get that one in there, didn't you? After 5 minutes, he's like nicking it around the centre off and smashing it in the top corner.
I said I agreed with you.
Yeah, you did, to be fair, yeah.
No, but I said I would have started him too, so I did just, so...
yeah, no.
But that's the Dyche way, innit? I think there was a game where, I think it was Wolves at home where we hadn't won for a little bit, and Wood and Barnes were started, and I was fuming, and then Wood and Barnes both score. So I think what's interesting about football and sport in general is when players are in the team and then they come out the team with injuries or whatever, you actually realise why they're playing. For me, like I said, I've criticised Wood this season, and actually when he's been out of the team, I do understand why Dyche sees him as his number one striker. And I know Vidra had a good game last night, but Barnes to a certain extent, because he does win those fouls, and when we are under pressure, he does get us up the pitch. And I think Cork coming back into the team, you can see why Dyche probably rates him as his number one centre mid. Do you get where I'm coming from with that point?
Yeah, definitely about Cork. I know sometimes players look better the longer they don't play, the more you sort of clamour for them. But yeah, 100%. It's I think the way we are especially is we're a sum of our parts, aren't we? It's not just 11 individuals. So when you've got players who really complement the roles well, then yeah, taking them out, it does make a big difference. And it goes back to what I was saying about 1 or 2 injuries, especially when we've got such a limited squad and we can't really pick, or we don't seem to be able to pick transfers that fit that kind of pattern so well. Then yeah, it does make a big difference. So yeah, 100%. I wanted to mention, I'm interested to see what you think about this. So obviously we know Vidra took his goal really well, a mistake from that Chowdhury, who has a shocker every time he plays against us, by the way. I was delighted seeing him play.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, not a good player. So Vidra, I thought he took his goal fantastically well, but and all the talk I saw after the game, now it wasn't about his finish; it was about Iheanacho's. Now, I'd love to know what you think about this goal. So there's 2 schools of thought. I think if you're a pundit or you're a neutral, you're thinking, yeah, to watch that follow over your shoulder, catch it on the volley and put it in the corner. That is great technique. But for me, I'm tearing my hair out watching that. 2 reasons. One, you've got Ndidi bringing out a defence. Now, fair enough, he's got a lot to do from where he is in the centre circle, but 2 centre forwards just watching him stroll up with it until it's too late. And he's a midfielder that, it's not like this is Johnny Evans coming out of defence who can't pass a ball. It's a midfielder playing at the back who can pick these passes, and that's what he normally brings a lot to the team doing that. So to let him off that run and to pick that pass in the first place, that frustrated me. But then the second thing, that finish, yeah, all right, fair play. It is difficult to catch it well when it's coming over your shoulder like that. But Pope is in no man's land for me. He's come halfway off his line. He's not got near enough to block the shot, but he's left so much of that goal to aim at. The reason Iheanacho's finished that is not because he's caught it fantastically well for me. It's dropped on his toe and it's trundled into the corner. Now, if he's going to score with that, he's got to really hit that in the top corner if the keeper's positioning's right. But because the Pope's come out and showed so much of the goal to him, all he's got to do is make contact for me, and he knows that, and that's why he's took that first down for me. So for me, although it was decent technique, that it's a cheap goal to concede. I'd be interested to know what you think.
Yeah, just before I give my point, if Vidra scored that goal, Tom, would you be more raving about it? Or would you say it was a scruffy finish and the keeper should have done better if we scored that goal?
Well, I don't rate Schmeichel's positioning very often. I thought I always go back to that Ross Wallace free kick in the last minute where he's give Wallace about the 2/3 of the goal to aim at in the last minute, and that's what Pope did for me.
Yes.
He's given 2/3 of the goal to aim at, so that doesn't have to be a great finish.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I'm not taking anything away from the technique to hit it first time over your shoulder like that, but he's not as if he's hit it with venom into the top corner. He's just hit it on target, and that's all he has to do for me.
Yeah, so I know I was playing devil's advocate there, but going back to the first one, it's not something I actually thought about too much, but yeah, now you mentioned it, we should have closed Ndidi down more. I think obviously the way we defend this, we're probably we're quite happy for the centre half to take the ball to the halfway line and maybe try and pick up their midfielders. But yeah, I thought it was a good point, and Ndidi is a very, very good player. I thought when he actually went into the midfield the last 20 minutes or so, Leicester looked a far better side. Because I think he is actually in his position, one of the best in the league. Going to the finish, initially, I fully agreed with you. I watched it and gone, what's Pope doing there? He's kind of, like you said, he was in no man's land. There's no getting away from it, and it's not good goalkeeper, not good goalkeeping. But then my mate who's a goalie, he doesn't listen to the No Nay Never podcast, so I will blow a bit of smoke up his ass, even though I wouldn't do normally. He's a good goalie, so he does play semi-pro. But what he said to me was, because I know nothing about goalkeeping, he said about 95% of the time, Iheanacho takes a touch there, and then if he takes a touch, Pope's in the perfect position to smother him and make the save. He said a lot of goalkeeping is anticipation, so you're trying to read where the striker or where the attacker's going to go and where the ball's going to go. And he said that he's just been completely caught out by, the technique from Iheanacho. So initially, I was in the same boat as you, Tom, where I thought the goal was because of a Pope mistake. But on reflection, and maybe he's biased because he's in the goalkeepers club. I know, goalkeepers never make mistakes, do they? It's never their fault. But I think sometimes you have. I think it was a good finish. It was a great ball. I think it was a great run off Iheanacho in the first place. He's caught me on his heels a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's bad defending either. I think it's just a really good run, and he's probably in the corner of his eye seen Pope come off his line a little bit too fast, and he's obviously just caught it sweetly. And I think what was frustrating was, I think there was about a 10-15 minute period after we scored that I thought Leicester were going to equalise. But then leading up to that goal, we seemed to get in our shape better. As I mentioned earlier, we were defending a little bit deeper, which we're comfortable with. I thought early on in the game, we were giving Leicester's wing-backs too much space. I thought we was pressing too high. But that's what was frustrating, is that was looking comfortable and the goal come out the blue. I actually felt like once the game settled down and it was got into a pattern that we was going to win 1-0. So, yeah, that was a bit of a frustration more than anything for me on my part. And at the end of the day, Pope's been unbelievable for us. So, yeah, it's one of them. I can't disagree with what you are saying. Obviously, getting a bit of analysis from a keeper, I can understand why Pope was in that position.
Yeah, fair enough. Interesting way of looking at it, I suppose, because they were saying on Match Today, 9 times out of 10, when you catch that, it goes in the stand or something. So I suppose when you think that's 9 times out of 10 when you hit it, and then you've got, like you say, 9 times out of 10 you take a touch as well. I suppose if you're playing the percentages, yeah, that makes sense. And it's one of them where if he does happen to catch it, then it makes you look silly, but it's how it goes. Fair enough, yeah, an interesting way of thinking about it. I hadn't thought of that.
That's just a quick one. That's the difference, isn't it, between, obviously both of us, Tom, I think the majority of our Burnley watching has been in the Championship, and that's those little moments of quality that you don't get against some of the weaker sides. in that level. Though these top teams, when you feel like you're comfortable in a game, they can, when you've got quality players like Ndidi and Iheanacho, they can just create a goal in a split second out of nothing, and when it's 1-1. It's similar to Tottenham, like you were saying. We was having a bit of possession. Bale gets the ball, plays an unbelievable pass to Kane. You're all of a sudden out of position. And then you've got one of the best strikers in Europe coming down on your goal, and it's 2-0 and game over. So, you know, that's the difference in the level sometimes, isn't it? And you can analyze it to the hill, and sometimes you can go, they're just top players, and that's the reason we're 15th and the third, I think, still Leicester.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's it. I think we did forget about some. Some of us did forget like that they are third as well, and they've got this kind of record. At the end of the game, we're all a bit frustrated that we haven't took advantage of that 15, 20 minutes at the start of the second half. But then, like you say, if you take it in isolation, they have got some top players still out on that pitch. Thought we did a good job on Vardy. I know he's not got the service from Maddison and Barnes, but barely saw him all night. So
yeah,
you have got to hold your hand up sometimes.
Yeah, we marked him really well. You said in our group chat, Tom, that you felt if Maddison or Barnes was playing, they may have had enough to win the game, especially late on when they was putting us under pressure.
Yeah, I did think for me, it's that last little bit of quality in the final third. So I think a lot of it dropped to Tielemans, and he's a good player, and I've seen him score some good goals, but he's more of a sort of a number 8 for me, not a number 10. So there was a ball in behind where he has a touch and then he has another touch and it just gets smothered. And I was thinking, if that's Vardy or that's Barnes or that's Maddison, that's going in the net. And I think that's what they could have done was having. I was just thinking this about Defoe. We could do with one Defoe playing number 4 and one Defoe playing number 10. They could have done with a Tielemans sat and someone to play that number 10 role in that, in his stead kind of thing. And I do think like the last sort of 20 minutes, they had the chances. They had that more quality on the ball. So I do think if one of them had been in there to maybe just play that final pass a bit better, then that it might have been the difference. And there's even that one. I think it was Tielemans who had the shot, and it gets deflected onto the post. I know we were unlucky with Westwood's shot as well, but yeah, you got to think about those things as well. So you can easily say, well, we should be beating them, and there's no Barnes and there's no Maddison, but we could have just as easily lost that game, especially if there was a Barnes or a Maddison. So yeah, on reflection, I think we can come away from that with a point and be quite happy with the evening's work, especially we're talking now just after Fulham have just got beat. So we've gained a point on the bottom three after playing one of the top 3 teams in the league. So I think when you look at it like that, you got to be happy with the outcome overall.
Going back to your point against Leicester, is that final third, that's something that we lack. Is you do all that good build-up play, and how often do we see that it just breaks down? And then you go back to a top team like Leicester, you take a couple of their best players out, and they lack it too. And that's the difference, isn't it, between the players we've got, and you're looking at Barnes, who's obviously had an outstanding season, and Maddison, players who are worth 50, 60 million compared to 15, 20 million pound players. The difference is just that little bit of killer instinct or a little bit of extra quality, to provide and get that goal and ultimately turn draws into wins.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, only a quick point from me, probably before we move on to something else. I don't know what you think about this. I've not really seen other people mention it, but so did you see the highlights from the Sheffield United Villa game? The red card that Jagielka got.
No.
For the last match.
No, sorry, I didn't see it. So.
No, fair enough. Why would you? So you've got a fella. So Jagielka brings this lad down. Maybe he's like 10, 15 yards from the edge of the box, and you've got a Sheffield United player sort of on the far side who could come round and across. You've got a Sheffield United player chasing it. He gets a booking for a foul, but then the ref looks at it on the monitor and he, because at the time of the tackle, he's sort of in line with the last man on the far side, even though he's got a good sort of 20, 30 yards to go to goal, and he gets a straight red. Now, for me, it was quite a harsh red card, but it made me think of an incident in our game, probably about 15 minutes left, something. Vidra gets goal side of Fofana, and he just grabs him and pulls him down just on the edge of the box. Now, for me, I think the reason that Fofana doesn't go is because the ball is an awkward one, so it's up and looping, and it's a difficult one to touch first time. But say if Vidra's first touch there is as good as Iheanacho's is from his looping ball in the first half, he's through for me. And Fofana's making no attempt to play the ball. All he does is grab him and pull him back because he knows that he's letting him get goal side. And I was a bit surprised that at the very least there wasn't a VAR check on that to see whether that should have been a straight red. I don't know if it's because I haven't seen many people talking about it, and I don't know if that's maybe just me. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you thought of that one.
Yeah, I seen you mention it last night on Twitter, Tom, and because unfortunately, I think once Burnley finished and I was quite happy with the draw, I switched off from football a little bit last night after we played. So I didn't see the Jagielka result, the red card, so I can't really compare. Me personally, Tom, I didn't quite think it was a red card, that Fofana one, because of the one you mentioned, because the bouncing ball. I still think there was a lot for Vidra to do there for you to actually say it's a clear red card. But then going back to what you were saying about Jagielka, I think with VAR it's just a consistency, isn't it? That's kind of still not happening. There was an handball given to Brighton in that West Brom game. But we didn't get the handball against Bartley, to me, which was just an absolute stonewaller all day long. So I think, and then you've seen tonight, obviously it's benefited us, and obviously the rule's the rule. I think Davinson Sanchez just smashed it off of Fulham's player arm. It's bobbled to Madja and he scored, and that's handball. So I think the handball rule has changed so many times this season. That's another one with VAR. And kind of like, I think the problem, going into a deeper issue, like you were saying, Tom, you may have thought that Fofana one was a red card. I didn't. I think there's so many subjective decisions in football compared to other sports. I've been watching a bit of the test match this morning, where it's kind of more black and white in sports like cricket, or I just don't think it lends itself to football the same because there's so many different variables. It's so subjective, and I actually feel that it's made the standard of officiating worse with VAR because they're really unsure on what decisions to make. And I think all that palaver with Lee Mason, with that free kick, that dunk scored, didn't score, then scored, then didn't scored, just epitomised the whole season and the whole of VAR for me. So I'm kind of took on your point to a further level, and and I think it's just a consistency of it, isn't it, Tom? That people are scratching their heads. Well, you give a red card for that. That's not a red card. You give an handball for that, but you don't give an handball for this. Well, that's a red card. That's not. That's a pen. Just get rid of VAR for me, personally. I'm really, really, really not a fan of it.
No, the problem is it's the same bad refs who are viewing it, whether it's on the telly or whether it's real time, I suppose, isn't it? I mean, we won't get the whole VAR thing.
That's the true, isn't it? Yeah.
We'll wait until we get really screwed over like we did in the Leeds game to have a proper go into VAR, but I've never been a fan. I wouldn't have brought it in, so yeah, you're preaching to the converted, damn it. I think next thing to maybe talk about, moving on from the game, is the fan survey. I know yourself and Mr. Steele as well have got some views on this. If anyone's not seen it, we should direct them to it'll be on the Twitter feed, on the club website. I think we have seen there's been supporter surveys before. I think people talking about it like it's a new thing from Pace. I've seen Garlic put a few out before as well, but it is obviously, I guess it's the first one with a new chairman, so it's perhaps a bit more impactful and a bit more wide ranging as well. Certainly the first time I've been asked about what we think about the levels of first team investment. Anyone who's listening who hasn't seen it and wants to put their points across, I will definitely get over to that and get that filled out. So your first thoughts on the supporter survey, Rich? What I presume you filled it out. What sort of what was the general level of feedback that you gave to the club?
Yeah, so I filled it out once. It didn't save properly on my phone, so I went back on my laptop and did it again. So I think I've done it twice. So that's why I was kind of talking about it yesterday, and we brought up a few different range of topics. And what I would just recommend is, just go and do it. At least the new board are willing to listen to fans and and you're willing to have your say. There was a wide range of questions there. Some questions that interest me won't interest you, Tom, and that'll be the same for all fans because people obviously have different opinions on what they think is important and non important. But just go away and answer it. Obviously, there was loads of different factors: food and drink, hospitality, advertising boards, kind of Clarets Plus, ticketing, which I think me and you, we're not going to say what it is, but I think me and you both agreed on the same thing, didn't we, for ticketing?
Yeah, George isn't on, so I think we we should sidestep.
Yeah, George
We'll
isn't.
wait until he's on, and we can talk about loyalty points in a bit more in a bit more detail, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, but it suits us, doesn't it, Tom, the current system, so we're happy. So obviously there was little boxes in the other comment. So in my final box, I said this. I thought I'll have not a little rant, but hope if they're reading it properly, they should have seen it. So what I put is, at the end of the day, improving match day experiences are well and good, but by far the most important is winning games and staying in the Premier League and improving as a club. The lack of investment into the first team the last 2 seasons has been abysmal, and the recruitment has also been very basic and limited. We need new players to stay in the league. As the new board, this should be our most important priority, not worrying about food and drink to serve or if there is enough half-time entertainment. Richard Steele.
Yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with what I thought about it. I mean, I suppose what you've got to think about really is, I guess, the board aren't that bothered what you think about the first team. They've got their own experts for that. They've got the manager in there, and I say experts, Mike Rigg, to speak to about transfers. So I guess it makes sense to really go in on to detail about the food and drink, etc. at the ground with the fans because we're the people that are most directly impacted by it. But yeah, I think we're of the same mind with regards to this. I'm not really that bothered that the Wi-Fi is not very good at the turf. I'll eat before the game or after. I don't have to come and buy a red hot peppered steak pie for £4 that I can get down Tesco for £1.50 or whatever before the game. That sort of thing doesn't really interest me as much as what's happening on the pitch. And like you say, if the money's going on in the first team, then I'll be happy with that. That's where it needs to go for me. So yeah, I think we were of similar mind when it came to responding to the forum. But then, having said that, I don't want to cheapen the fact that we have got the opportunity to talk about the other things, the things that impact on the fans directly, like I say, facilities around the ground, things to do with the fan zone, things to do with the catering, the food and drink. There'll be a lot of people listening who've got kids, and it's probably a bit more important for them to have options, things to do at half time for the kids, food and drink, that kind of stuff. I can remember when I was a kid, half the attraction of going, it wasn't just a game, it was calling in at Nutters around the corner from the turf before, getting a bag of wine gums. Those are the kind of things that stick with you when you're a kid, I think, a bit more than when you're an adult. So, things like that, I suppose, there'll be more of a priority for people who, like us, youngish blokes, childless in our late 20s, early 30s. So, I suppose that's why we should really direct people to go for the survey and to have their own say, even if you're not passionate particularly about the match day experience like we are, or if you are, it's a good opportunity from the club, and it's nice to have it there.
Yeah, definitely, Tom. I think you made some valid points. Going back to children, I think producer Matt mentioned the point about he's got 2 young kids, and they want a bit more going around the ground because kids will get bored for 2 hours sitting there just watching a game of football. I think my memory was, and I mentioned it to you, was about going into the elite training centre before the game, taking a footy and just having a kick about in there, just something as simple as that. Getting me. I remember one of my first memories of Burnley is when Ian Wright made his debut, and I got my face painted Claverton blue, and that was brilliant. When I didn't want to wash it off. So I wanted to go into school on Monday morning with Ian Wright on me. Just little things like that attract kids, and not that I'm comparing and I want it to be the same because I'm not a massive fan of them. But I went to Brighton at the start of last season. I think it was at the very start. It was when Hendrick scored a last minute equaliser. And don't get me wrong, it was a nice day and it was these big new stadiums. but I was very, very impressed with what they had around the ground to do. You know, I had a penny shootout. Just thought, well, why not? You know, and he ended up beating a spotty teenage Brighton fan, which was always a bonus. Just little things like that. I think, imagine, Tom, if they had something as simple as a couple of things where you can have a penny shootout against maybe one of the, against, a member coaching staff at Bird, something like that for kids. I think that would be improved. One thing I did actually emphasise was, and this is something I would buy, if they just had chips, we could just buy chips at half time.
Did he put that on the form? Just chips?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Just chips, that's all, yeah. But I'm the same as you, Tom. It's kind of, there is a wider spectrum and there's different people, obviously. You know, the the facilities for toilets aren't great. You're queuing up for ages at half time. I know when my missus doesn't go watching a lot, but when she's gone, she's complained about the standard of toilets and stuff like that, which obviously as males we're not as bothered about, but I think that's really important too. So I think for maybe younger fans more so than us who's just hooked by the football, I think that's maybe what they're trying to do. So I think it's all good, and as you said, it literally takes 10 minutes to do. If you've got a spare 10 minutes over the weekend, just go and do it. At the end of the day, you as a fan, you want to feel valued and you want to have a little bit of a voice. So
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on, Richard, can I ask? You may have won the penalty shootout with that Brighton fan, but what was the XG for the Brighton fan?
Oh, well, he hit the bar, he hit the post. The keeper made a save in the top corner, so his XG was he only had 5 penalties, but his XG was 9.2.
That's the real victory, mate. That's the real victory. England job for Graham Potter.
Yeah. Potter's Army on the XG trail. There's some nonsense that gets written in there. Potter for England.
Oh dear. I mean,
3 points behind Burnley still.
Yeah. England XG World Cup winners 2020. Bring it on. I know the podcast title this week, the pint in the packet of crisps, a little reference to Dyche's pre-match comments about Nick Pope, it's 50 million quid, but he'd sell him for a pint in a packet of crisps. I don't know about you, Rich. I just want to throw this out there. Is it just me who thinks he's maybe not that funny? Maybe I wouldn't mind him just going back to just a few boring press conferences where he doesn't come up with some wacky line. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting a bit bored of it now.
The cynic in you. Yeah, I think it actually shows that he's more happy. I think he looks more relaxed in his press conferences. Going back to, remember his interviews and his press conferences post lockdown. When obviously him and Garlic fell out. I actually found them really difficult to watch because it was blatant to see he wasn't happy. So I think it's quite nice to see him a lot more relaxed. I think with his manner the last few weeks, and he said positive noises about ALK. He's obviously mentioned about he's got some more meetings about Alan Pace, but they're building a relationship. One of Dyche's about getting everything aligned. He's mentioned that too. So it gives me more confidence that he will, looking long term, that he will sign that new contract, which I think at the end of the day is vital for us, isn't it?
I like that. That's a positive spin on it. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm relentlessly cynical. I don't know. Keep it up then, Dyche. Keep being happy in the press conferences. Yeah. All right. Let's have a look at the Arsenal game. I don't know. I feel like a lot of your pre-match optimism or otherwise is dictated by how the last game went. So I don't feel like too many people are optimistic about the Leicester game. But after that performance, you've got to be confident that we can get something out of these.
Yeah, Arsenal's a funny one, isn't it? Because, sometimes you want, and probably that's why they're around mid-table. Again, they've got some very good players. They've definitely improved since the last time we played them at the Emirates. Seems like Arteta's got rid of a lot of the deadwood or bad influences. And obviously they got a really good win against Leicester, but they won 3-0 at the weekend. And they've had a bit of a break midweek, I think. Arsenal's not playing this week, so that may help them. But like us, when back to before, Wood and Vidra up front together, they'll have a lot of confidence. And I always fancy us at the turf. I think we may have not won since Aston Villa at the turf. Maybe I think I'm right there. But at the end of the day, we've not lost in a while either, so it'll be a close, competitive game. What I just really want us to do was, against these lot who are soft as out, just get stuck into it, make it physical, make it a battle, you know. But that doesn't mean just play, aimless hoofs up the pitch, but get in and around and make it difficult for them. We always say if Arsenal start whinging, probably similar to what Sayuncu was doing last night, it knows, we're getting under the skin a little bit. So yeah, I'm confident. But I think with our form, there's a good chance of it being a draw, which I wouldn't sniff at. Keep just accumulating these points, especially in this tough run with the gap we've got over Fulham and then obviously going to Anfield away next. But yeah, listen, I'm gonna. I always like to be positive on the podcast. So I presume you get into it, but I'm gonna back Burnley to win that game.
Yeah, it's I'm minded like you. I think I can see us getting something easily. I think if you'd have offered me 2-3 points before out of Tottenham, Leicester, Arsenal, and Everton, I'd have took that. Just keeps it ticking over. So if we can avoid defeat, I think that'll be a good outcome. But yeah, no reason that we can't look to win it. I think their frailties as ever are at the back. I think if Wood has a game against, especially someone like David Luiz, like he did against Soyuncu, then we're going to get some tantrums. We're going to get some fireworks. So yeah, they are beatable for me. And if you put in a beatable team up against us at home, if we can pull a performance out, then we've got a chance of a win. So yeah, I'd be cautiously optimistic going into that one, but I'm with you. Like a point is not a bad result, and it keeps it ticking over. Especially Fulham have got, I can't remember if it's one of Liverpool or Man City this weekend, isn't it? So you'd fancy them to get beat in that one. So if we can get a point,
yeah, they've got Liverpool away.
Liverpool away. There you go. So I mean, not the fortress it once was.
Yeah, I said they've got Liverpool away this weekend and City at home weekend after.
Yeah, there you go. So even a point or two out of the Arsenal and Everton games, you'd imagine is going to push us that little bit further clear of the relegation zone. So yeah, that like you say, steady Eddie, keep picking up points, and yeah, I'm still pretty optimistic that we're not going to be in any trouble come the end of the season. Should we have a prediction then, just to round it off? I know you said you fancied a win.
Yeah, just looking long term, I think we'll stay up, but I hope we do it a bit more convincingly. I know staying up, we just don't limp over the line. But end of the day, it is what it is. Prediction, yeah, I'm gonna go. Well, I thought we was gonna hold on to our lead last night, so I'm gonna go 1-0. I think Wood will get his goal this weekend. So, like I said, I've been critical of Woody this season, so I'm gonna back him to get the goal in a 1-0 win.
Like that.
But I think it'll be 1-1 actually.
Cover all bases, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, a boring 0-0 wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. But I'll say another exciting game. I'll have a 2-1. I think I fancy McNeil to score a proper one. He's only got one this season, and it was that light fluky cross that went in the far corner. So I'll have McNeil to score a proper one, and yeah, I think Wood's due a goal, like you say, and then Aubameyang will probably punch one in or something like that, and somehow VAR will miss it. And by the way, I will absolutely bite your hand off for limping over the finish line and staying up. I don't care how we do it, as long as we stay up, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I just don't think, because as you know, Tom, I'm more emotionally unstable than you, so I don't think I could cope with it being close the last few games of the season.
I was thinking about this today, actually. Like, I think every season we've been in the Prem, it's never gone down to the last day. We've always either been relegated or safe by the final day. So a little part of me would not mind too much. So if let's not have it too difficult. Let's be 3 points above the drop zone come the last day, and we need a point against Sheffield United just to be mathematically safe. Just for a little bit of spice on the final day. I wouldn't mind too much. I mean, obviously I'd rather be safe a bit earlier than that, but I guess it would mix it up a bit.
No, I'd rather be 10 points clear. I'm boring. I can't deal with that level of spice in my life. Like I said, I'd have a breakdown.
More of a lemon and herb kind of guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. What I've been saying is that this season's been difficult, hasn't it? Squad, not going to games, fixture congestion. I just really want to be at Turf Moor in August next season and we're a Premier League club. That's what I really want. So please just keep the points ticking over and let me watch us against against a Premier League side rather than Norwich again. No, they're going up rather than like Luton or
Or
something.
Blackburn.
Or Preston. And they beat us. First game back at Turf.
Inevitable, isn't it? Do you know what, Rich? I think that's a very good place to leave it. Thanks very much. It's been nice chatting to you.
Cheers, Tom.
Look after yourself.
Yeah, good chat. Look after yourself, Maitland. Cheers, listeners. Let's hope for another exciting game at the weekend, and hopefully 3 points to really start the weekend well.
Absolutely. Here we go. Up the Clarets. Take care.
So many thanks to Rich and to Tom for giving up their time to analyse those last 2 matches and everything else that's been going on at the club over the last 7 days. Natalie and Dave will be here later on today with your preview show ahead of tomorrow's clash against Arsenal, and the main show will be back next week to look back at that match against Arsenal and look forward to the match against Everton. Stay safe, Clarets, and we'll see you all very soon.